We might be looking for AGI in the wrong place. Everyone expects it to arrive as a single, massive breakthrough. A trillion-parameter supermodel trained inside a warehouse of servers somewhere in the cloud. Bigger models, higher benchmarks, more compute. That's the story we've been told. But what if that story is incomplete? What if AGI doesn't arrive as one giant artificial brain but as something quieter, smaller, and already spreading? Not upward, outward. Into your phone, your car, your laptop, your glasses. What if the road to AGI isn't vertical scaling, but horizontal expansion? Not a bigger brain, a nervous system. And if that's true, then AGI may not appear as a headline. It may surround us slowly, until one day we realize we're already living inside it. Recently, something happened that barely made headlines. No record-breaking model, no benchmark breakthrough, no trillion-parameter announcement. Just a quiet update. AI is moving on to devices. Not just smartphones, feature phones, cars, laptops, even smart glasses. At first, it sounded technical, incremental, routine. But deployment is not a small word. Because when intelligence moves from the cloud to the device, everything changes. It stops being something you visit and starts becoming something that lives with you. Local, persistent, always on, always near. That shift from centralized intelligence to distributed presence may matter more than another 10% improvement in reasoning scores. Because when intelligence expands its surface area, it reshapes the structure of the entire system. And in technology, infrastructure, not headlines, is what quietly decides the future. For years, we've been taught to measure progress in one direction. Bigger models, longer context windows, more compute, higher benchmark scores. As if intelligence were a ladder, and all we had to do was keep climbing. Every release follows the same pattern. Scale up. Train longer. Beat the benchmarks. Ask again, is this AGI? But intelligence has never been just about size. Raw capacity without integration is still isolated. Today's cloud AI, as powerful as it is, remains episodic. You open a session. You ask a question. You close the window. It doesn't persist. It doesn't continuously observe. It doesn't live inside an environment the way biological intelligence does. And if AGI requires more than isolated bursts of reasoning, if it requires continuity, grounding, presence, then vertical scaling alone may not be enough. Because intelligence doesn't only grow taller, it spreads. And once you see that shift, deploying AI across devices no longer looks like a minor update. It starts to look like a structural change. Maybe the road to AGI isn't a single arrow pointing upward. Maybe it's two forces moving at the same time. One vertical, one horizontal. Vertical scaling is easy to see. Bigger models, deeper reasoning, more compute packed into centralized clouds. That's the obvious path. But horizontal integration is quieter and just as powerful. More devices, more sensors, more environments, more persistent touchpoints woven into daily life. When intelligence spreads across phones, cars, wearables, and low-cost devices, something changes. It stops being a tool you visit and starts becoming a layer you live inside. Vertical scaling builds a stronger brain. Horizontal expansion builds a nervous system. And if AGI requires more than raw intelligence, if it requires integration with the real world, then these two paths aren't rivals. They're converging. The real question isn't which direction wins. It's what happens when both reach critical mass at the same time. When you look at how different companies are moving along these two axes, the strategy becomes clearer. Apple is doubling down on the device. With Apple Intelligence running locally through its neural engine, it's building a deeply personal AI layer, tightly integrated, tightly controlled, embedded inside its ecosystem. Google is playing both sides. Gemini Nano runs directly on billions of Android devices, while Gemini Ultra powers massive reasoning in the cloud. Together, it starts to resemble a hybrid planetary brain, distributed at the edge, centralized at the core. And then there's Sarvam, less focused on winning the benchmark race, more focused on expanding deployment. Multilingual models embedded across smartphones, feature phones, cars, even industrial systems. Not necessarily trying to build the smartest model in the world, but trying to be everywhere. And that contrast reveals something important. The race to AGI may not be about who builds the single most powerful model first. It may be about who integrates intelligence most deeply into reality. Because power without presence has limits. But presence at scale changes the system itself. Feature phones might be the most overlooked signal in this entire shift, because they represent the opposite of excess. Limited compute, minimal memory, unstable connectivity, no luxury hardware, no premium ecosystem. And yet, deploying AI there forces a completely different kind of innovation. Not scale, efficiency, compression, optimization, ubiquity. When intelligence can run on low-cost hardware and reach hundreds of millions of users outside elite tech ecosystems, it stops being a luxury layer. It becomes infrastructure. And infrastructure is what changes societies. Because once intelligence becomes cheap, distributed, and ambient, it starts reshaping how people search, how they communicate, how they navigate, how they learn, how they decide. At that point, the question is no longer, is this the biggest model in the world? The real question becomes, has intelligence become so embedded in daily life that the system itself begins to behave differently? This is where embodiment becomes unavoidable. Because intelligence in isolation is abstract. But intelligence connected to sensors, environments, and continuous feedback evolves differently. When AI lives inside cars, it processes motion, space, and risk in real time. When it lives inside smart glasses, it layers information directly onto the physical world. When it lives inside personal devices, it accumulates context across days, months, even years. And that continuity starts to resemble something far closer to a nervous system than a chatbot. Biological intelligence is not shaped by benchmarks. It's shaped by friction, by feedback, by consequence, by constant interaction with the world. So if AI begins operating inside those loops, observing, adapting, persisting, then we're no longer talking about isolated bursts of reasoning. We're talking about a system that is grounded, contextual, continuously learning from reality itself. And that shift may matter far more on the road to AGI than another jump in benchmark scores. Of course, none of this guarantees faster progress toward AGI. Edge deployment comes with real constraints. Smaller models, limited memory, fragmented hardware, strict power efficiency trade-offs. There's a valid concern here. If we spread lighter intelligence across billions of devices, are we diluting focus from building deeper reasoning systems in the cloud? A compressed model running locally cannot yet match the cognitive depth of a frontier model trained on massive clusters. And monetizing on-device AI at global scale? Still uncertain. So the tension becomes clear. Does embedding intelligence into reality accelerate progress? Or does prioritizing ubiquity slow the race for raw capability? That uncertainty is what makes this moment so compelling. Because structural shifts rarely look dramatic at first. They look incremental, almost boring. Until one day, the balance tips, and the system begins behaving in ways no one fully anticipated. When you step back, three possible futures begin to take shape. The first is the one most people expect: a centralized breakthrough. A single supermodel in the cloud crosses a capability threshold, and overnight, everything changes. The second future is quieter. Intelligence evolves through deeply personal assistance embedded inside our devices. More contextual, more persistent, more intertwined with daily life. Not explosive. Gradual. The third future is broader. Intelligence spreads horizontally across billions of endpoints. No single model defines it. But together, the system begins to exhibit something larger, a distributed cognitive layer spanning the planet. And here's the twist. These futures may not compete at all. They may converge. A powerful centralized brain connected to a vast distributed nervous system embedded into everyday reality. At that point, AI no longer looks like a tool. It starts to look like an environment. And if that's where we're heading, then the road to AGI won't be a single dramatic moment we instantly recognize. It will be a structural transformation, quiet, gradual, surrounding us, until one day we realize intelligence isn't something we access anymore. It's something we live inside. So maybe AGI doesn't arrive as a headline, not as a single announcement that changes everything overnight. Maybe it emerges through a structural shift, intelligence scaling upward in power, while simultaneously spreading outward into devices, environments, and daily routines. Growing stronger and growing wider until the line between using AI and simply living starts to blur. Maybe the real milestone isn't the final benchmark, not the moment a model crosses one last score, but the moment intelligence becomes ambient, persistent, woven into infrastructure the way electricity once was, invisible yet indispensable. And if that's true, the most important signals won't look dramatic. They'll look quiet. Subtle integrations, device updates, partnerships that expand surface area, not parameter counts. Because in the end, the road to AGI may not be a straight climb toward a bigger brain. It may be a web, slowly extending, quietly connecting, until one day it surrounds the world.